Hey, so I wanted to do a video today on this story. Bruce Arians believes that Antonio Brown could return to his form of 2017, 2016, 2018, one of those years, where Antonio Brown was clearly the best receiver in football at that time, and arguably one of the greatest wide receivers we've ever seen. And I want people to put down in the comment section, where do you think, give me a player before and a player after Antonio Brown, but where do you think he ranks on the all-time receiver list? Um, like tier list. I think that to me, Antonio Brown is a top five receiver. Um, I will put uh, I will put him above To, but that's because I think that To is just his physical abilities, his height, his speed. I think that those were a gift to him. He strongly benefited from those. Now the hard work, he did all that, but I think that he strongly benefited from the height, the speed, and you know being being such an imposing force at wide receiver. Where Antonio Brown is on the smaller side, where To I think is like 6'3", 6'4", if I'm not mistaken. Antonio Brown is like 5'11", 5'10", somewhere around there. And his ability to get open, his route running is superior. I mean, the only player that I can think that has better route running than he does is Jerry Rice. And I think this would seem like an incendiary comment, but I think that his route running might be on par with Jerry Rice's route running. His ability to get open, find the openings in the defense, and catch the ball is on par with Randy Moss. I mean, this dude was the real deal. Now, people are still up in arms about his rape allegations and the things that he possibly did to those personal trainers. But I did videos in the past where I said I don't believe any of it. If anything, I think that Antonio Brown had consensual relations with these people, and if he's a perpetrator of anything, my bad. If he's a perpetrator of anything, it would be poor judgment. Not surrounding himself with trustworthy people. A lot of times, those problems can be our own doing. Is the people that we have around us, and I think that he allowed himself to be around somebody that would not care about selling out her morals or values for money. Because trust and believe, I don't think that whatever her name is, I forgot the girl's name. I don't think that she was doing this just because she was bored, and I don't think that he did anything to her. But let's go. Let's listen.
Fired up about the latest development in Tampa. Antonio Brown received some high praise from head coach Bruce Arians for how healthy and explosive he's looked at camp. Arians raved about AB, saying he looks better than ever right now and is playing at a speed like he was at 4 to 5 years ago. So, Shannon, do you expect Antonio Brown to be even better than he was last year with Brady?
I do, Skip, for the simple fact is, you remember last year, Skip, he didn't come in until half the season. Yeah. And there's no kind of football shape unlike playing football. So he can do all the running you want on the track. You can do all the drills you want to. But what gets you in shape is playing football. So it took him a while to get his legs up under him. Now, Skip, he's not going to be what what BA is saying 4 to 5 years ago. In 2015, AB averaged 12 targets a game. He's not going to get that. In a 6-year span, from 2013 to 2018, he averaged 170 targets a game. He's not going to get that many targets. But we saw last year in the 8 games that he did play, he was almost 6 catches a game. So I can see him healthy, him being very, very comparable to those numbers. You project that out over 17 games, Skip, and that's a very good season.
I don't think BA said anything about Antonio Brown having the numbers of 4 or 5 years ago. He said that his playing ability would be at the level of 4 or 5 years ago. Because let's not forget, Antonio Brown missed one season, technically. 1 season. He missed 1 season. Well, he missed 1 season plus some other games. Okay, so it's not like he's been out for 5 years. It's not like he took a massive retirement or layoff. He's been out of football for about maybe 1.5 seasons. And he's still relatively young. I mean, Antonio Brown is not that old. It's not like he's 35 out there trying to run around. I think at the most I think he was drafted in 2010, 2009, 2010. So maybe he's about 31, 32. Okay? He takes care of himself for the most part. I mean, this dude had one of the most committed lifestyles to playing the game of football. He seems to be a hard worker, practiced hard, played hard, and he seems to really take pride in his ability to play the game. He takes pride in that. He was a hard worker. But ever since he wanted to leave Pittsburgh, for some reason, man, like this dude will always have this sexual assault allegation against him because he wanted to leave Pittsburgh. Nothing ever came up before. I mean, besides the mispracticed hair, the arguments there. I mean, before that, AB at the top of his game, you didn't hear anything about him off the field. You didn't hear anything about him in the locker room, on the field, nothing. Like, nothing. Until he wanted to leave.
So AB is explosive. Nobody has ever questioned AB's ability. That was never, ever the issue. Him getting to the field was never the issue. It was all the things that came along with him. It was the practice. It was the meeting. It was the behavior. If Big Ben wasn't throwing him 55 targets a game, that was the...
I think Antonio Brown grew frustrated in Pittsburgh. And I said in previous videos, Pittsburgh has always been one of the most talented teams in the NFL, along with the Cowboys. Just a great, accumulation of talent. But they never won. They wasn't winning anything. They wasn't winning anything at all. They kept coming up short year after year. They would either come up short of the Super Bowl or come up short of the playoffs. Year after year. And I think that he grew frustrated. He realized that he wasn't going to win there. He wanted to leave. He saw the writing on the wall that they were going to try to replace him with Juju Smith-Schuster. And if you learn anything about players and loyalty, they take that shit very seriously. And they feel betrayed when teams decide to move off of them. No matter what a player says about the business of football, they, in their back of their minds, they have a tape playing in their head saying, I thought this team was going to do right by me, and they're not. And it fucks with them. It really does. It messes with them. This is why loyalty in sports is such a dangerous thing, because just the perception that it exists, it's almost like lulling yourself into a false sense of security. And then when that thing is challenged, you kind of start to lose your shit a little bit. So, I think that was the problem. But we all seen how it worked out with Juju Smith-Schuster, who was supposed to be the next guy up, who was going to be, I guess, a more improved version of Antonio Brown.
Problem with AB, it was the behavior, not his ability, the behavior. BA made it abundantly clear. You step out of line, you're gone. It's amazing when guys are faced with their professional mortality, how they'll behave.
And when you hear them talk about him, it's almost like an uncontrollable problem child who has a long history of misbehaving. Antonio Brown had 2 years, one in Pittsburgh, one out of Pittsburgh, where it was just one of the roughest times, I'm pretty sure, in his entire life. Where it's almost like the Deshaun Watson thing is kind of similar to this, but on a more extreme scale. But Antonio Brown is almost viewed as this guy that ever since he came into the league, he's had this personality problem when he's never had it before until he wanted to leave Pittsburgh. And the year that he decided to, I think he said he decided to sit out. No, or they sat him one or the other. But his last game in Pittsburgh, he didn't. Something happened, and it was like the end. It was the end. It was the end of a year-long process of him transitioning to being out. And he said all that shit about Juju, and I even went on record to say that I thought that him going after Juju was kind of unnecessary. Juju seemed like a nice kid who really didn't ask to be in that situation to replace arguably the greatest receiver that franchise has ever seen. But it was the situation he was in. And to take your anger out on him was kind of unnecessary. But he was already transitioning out. Antonio Brown was already gone. It's just the move wasn't made yet.
That's what it took. Because I hate that it took him $30 million to find this out, because that's what he lost in Oakland. $30 million that he never going to make up. But I'm glad.
He'll make it up. Antonio Brown is, I don't want to say he's a surefire Hall of Famer. Maybe this sexual assault allegation may hinder that a little bit. But do I think at some point he'll be in the Hall of Fame? Yes. And that $30 million that people like, nah. That's not going to weigh as heavy on him as it probably does right now. Or did before. But when you look at Antonio Brown, he doesn't seem to be that shaken up about losing that money.
Glad he turned his life around and says, you know what? This game is bigger than me. Because there have been a lot better players, and guess what? The NFL will move on.
There hasn't. At his position, there hasn't been that many players that was just better than him. You can say Jerry Rice for sure. But then when you get down to Randy Moss, sure, you could throw Randy Moss above him. You could throw T.O. above him. I mean, he's no doubt the greatest Pittsburgh wide receiver ever, skill-wise, ever. Even more skilled than Lynn Swann. I would put him above Lynn Swann in a minute. Hines Ward, not even close. There are receivers that I say is better than him, but are they that much better? No. That's why I say he's a top 5 receiver. Because then when you get down to a Calvin Johnson, you get down to a Julio Jones, you know, you get down to a Michael Irvin, you get down to I'm trying to think of some other really great receivers. Again, like I'm trying to like find the top of the heap. I can't. There's not too many people I will put above him. If anything, there's only 2 of them maybe. I have him positioned over T.O., and that's only because T.O. wasn't able to win the title. He wasn't able to get that ring. I think that at least if T.O. had a ring, I would still have T.O. above him. But seeing as how Antonio Brown was a part of a championship winning team, I can't. It would have to be based on skill. I mean, it would have to be based on skill and that title, and I would think that he has the advantage. Like, if he didn't have the title, it would be based on skill alone. And maybe you could still put T.O. above him, but right now I have Antonio Brown 3rd. I mean, Antonio Brown is a special player. Go back and look at some of his highlights, man. I mean, he's a phenomenal route runner. One of the most talented I've seen in a very long time, but it's my opinion, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Eventually, Tom Brady's going to retire. But guess what, Skip? They're still going to play football.
Yep.
They still play football after Jerry Rice retired, Emmitt Smith. So the NFL is a machine. It's going to continue to churn with or without you. I prefer AB be a part of it as long as he possibly can. But it took what transpired in Pittsburgh, what transpired at Oakland, what transpired in him being sitting on his couch before someone giving him a call for him to realize, you know what, this game bigger than me.
And that's funny Because Antonio Brown has never. I mean, besides like I said, the 2 years that he was going through all that shit he was going through. Besides that time, at no point in Antonio Brown's career did I ever get like this diva mentality. Now, I mean, he would celebrate. Like when he would score, he would celebrate. You know. But I never got the diva. Like, look at Chad Johnson. Chad Johnson. I mean, he was boisterous, loud talking. I mean, he was a showboat. He was a diva receiver. T.O., diva receiver. I wouldn't say Randy Moss was a diva receiver, and neither was Jerry Rice. But Antonio Brown is not the loud, boisterous type. He seems very reserved, like, to be honest. And besides his stint on social media, you know, like, when that video came out, right before they played the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, and Antonio Brown was posting his video, on, you know, like a live stream, a Facebook live stream of his locker room, that just looked like blatant disrespect. Like, screw your rules, I'm going to do what I want. And not because he thinks he could just do what he wants, but because there was no respect. There was no respect for that locker room. There's no respect for that team. There's no respect for any, you know, that coach. And when you look at his teammates around him, nobody said, bro, turn that shit off. Nobody said, put it down. Nothing. They're all throwing high fives and, well, not high fives, but like they're putting up peace signs and celebrating and shit, you know, after the win. Like, I've said this before, man. I think Pittsburgh has a very toxic locker room. Very toxic locker room. And you know the locker room has to be toxic when that quarterback has more cachet than the head coach, where the quarterback could potentially get the head coach fired. Look at Brady in New England. Under no circumstances do I think Brady could ever get Belichick fired. But I believe that Mike Tomlin would be out of there if Big Ben wanted him out of there. Look at Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. Aaron Rodgers wanted Mike McCarthy out of there, and when he signed that contract, he got what he wanted. They brought in Matt LaFleur. He's like, let's keep listening.
I'm going to make this money while I still can.
Yep.
Behave myself, act like an adult, be a professional. There's a pro and there's a professional. Let me behave and act accordingly and get this money.
And let me seize the opportunity to play with the GOAT.
Yeah, and get a championship.
That's what I'm saying. So I loved everything I heard from Antonio Brown yesterday because most of his troubles are now behind him. Does that mean he's an angel? No, he's not.
No.
And is he?
Who is? I love how these sports analysts get on TV and act like they're not subject to human flaws as well. Nobody's an angel. Everybody has their shit. Everybody does something that some people would consider, you might not want to be doing that. Everybody, no matter how small it is, there are different levels to this. Nobody's an angel. Nobody said Antonio Brown was an angel. But for them to get on TV and keep hammering away at that notion, like we're supposed to be demonizing this guy. Like, what about that sexual assault allegation? Wasn't that supposed to demonize him? He has yet to be considered. I thought they had enough evidence. He has yet to be considered guilty. like that shit's all but almost over. It's almost past him. Give it like another year or two. People are going to soon forget about it. Does that seem like somebody with major character flaws? Like the story they're painting, it does not seem like a guy who has major character flaws. And as much as I like Odell Beckham had way more issues off the field that nobody even talks about anymore. And they shouldn't. But we're still hammering away at this, and we're still painting this dude as like he's been this long-term problem child. No, he hasn't. And the fact that they keep riding with that narrative is just ridiculous.
1 inch away from going over the edge again. We know we've seen it too often. But I do believe that Tom Brady has been good for him, and he's been good for Tom Brady because they have some kind of rapport.
They do.
They have a mutual trust that exhibited itself early on last year because, to your point, he walks in not in football shape. And if you look at what happened over the last 8 games of the regular season.
Once Antonio Brown got his feet under him, and this is why I say, man, this dude he's a Hall of Famer. He may not be a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, but he'll be one. This dude came in off the street. I'm pretty sure he's been training. But like former NFL players will tell you, there's no training like actual game training. There's no preparing for the game unless you are actually in the game. And maybe there was a week, maybe 2 weeks where he struggled a little bit, but it wasn't very long. Antonio Brown got his feet under him, and he was one of the most impactful third options or slot receivers we've seen. And this is how great this offense is. You got Chris Godwin and Mike Evans on the field, and you have Antonio Brown, one of the arguably the best receiver of the last 20 years. And you mean to tell me he's your third option? Man, this team is way too stacked. And the only thing that could derail them is hubris. There's 2 things, hubris and injury. If they can avoid both of those things, this team is going to repeat no problem. I'm sorry, it's just no problem. And I don't think the Chiefs have anything that they can do about it. They can't defend anything. There's just way too many options. I think this is the greatest team Tom Brady has been a part of in his career. And he is not going to pass up the opportunity to take advantage of it. This dude has played with no-name receivers, very ineffective backs, iffy offensive lines, and iffy defenses. I'm talking about regular season-wise. But when they get to the playoffs, the team became a machine. But he's never had talent to this level. And I think Antonio Brown gets way more flack than he needs to. Sure, he made some mistakes. I'm pretty sure. And I think his mistakes have more to do with his social interactions. But if you're going to tell me that this dude, Antonio Brown, is a rapist, I laugh at that. That he is a long-term problem that has to be managed. I laugh at that. And as much as I respect Tom Brady as a football player, if I'm Antonio Brown, I'm more than grateful to be able to play with this dude. But in no way is this nigga he's not my father. And that's the way they make it painted, like he's some child that has to be managed by a father figure. That's the way they make it seem.
He averaged, he had 62 total targets a game. That's 8 targets a game.
Yeah.
8 targets a game. His 62 were only one short of Mike Evans' 63 targets over the last 8 games of the year. So all of a sudden, he's right at the top of the list.
Right.
And his catches were the most on the team over the last 8 games. He had 45 balls that he caught to 40 for Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin also had 40.
Right.
So you think they were looking sideways like, gee, I thought we were pretty good, and all of a sudden this guy's catching more balls than we are?
Skip, he makes everybody better because now you see Mike Evans was a little gimpy.
Sorry.
Watch Mike Evans this year if he's 100%.
You can't double team. Who are you going to double team? If you double team Antonio Brown, you're leaving one-on-one matchups with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. If you double team Mike Evans, same thing goes for the other 2. Same thing goes if you double Chris Godwin. Now, let's say if you find an effective way to double and shadow all 3 of these receivers. Now you got the running backs and the tight ends wide open. You have Giovanni Bernard, who's been a capable receiving option out of the backfield for years in Cincinnati. You have Leonard Fournette, just 2 years ago, who was viewed as one of the most powerful running backs in the NFL. And you still have Ronald Jones, who over the past couple of seasons have been just improving steadily. And that's just the running backs. Now let's talk about the tight ends. You got Rob Gronkowski, who's an effective weapon, and we all know why. You have O.J. Howard, who's coming off an injury. They're going to work him back into the lineup, but trust me, by the time playoff time comes around, he's going to be in there, and he's going to have some reps. And you still have Cameron Brate, who just, 5 years ago was the starter before they drafted O.J. Howard? A capable starter. This stacked. Stacked. This team is stacked.
Healthy.
Oof. Well, speaking of 100% healthy, the point that Bruce Arians was making was that AB had never had a surgery in his life. And this knee was nagging him down the stretch last year. And finally, at New Orleans in the playoff.
And I'm pretty sure the reason why his knee was nagging him is just from the practices and the games, just playing, not necessarily getting hit, not twisting something, turning something. It's more just like maintenance. Like sometimes when your car isn't banged up or something isn't, wrong infrastructurally, it's just sometimes you need maintenance. Sometimes you just need to make sure that everything is working at its fullest capacity, like capabilities. Like you just need to make sure that everything is running smoothly. And I think that's all this is. Nothing alarming. Nothing alarming at all.
Game, it went. He tore the cartilage. He missed the whole NFC Championship game at Green Bay.
Right.
He missed it. He came back limpy and gimpy for the Super Bowl and managed to catch the 1-yard touch.
And that could easily be because he spent a year and a half not playing football. That easily could be because he spent a year and a half not playing football. I mean, athletes will tell you muscle memory is very important because you have to do something. You have to get a significant amount of reps so your body can get used to the kind of movements that you have to make. And because this dude probably hasn't played in a very long time, that could be the issue. Nothing too serious. But I still think that he needs maintenance. I think part of what makes route running receivers so effective when they're great at it is the shifty movements that need to be made at the drop of a dime. And when you don't do this regularly, when you take a significant amount of time off, you have to rework your body back into that mode of muscle memory. But that's it, I'm done. I mean, I've watched this video probably 2 or 3 times before I did anything on it. But Antonio Brown is not a problem that needs to be fixed. I think the problem is more times than not is the infrastructure that's surrounding the player. It's almost like when you look at life and when we talk about how the youth is this and the youth is that, maybe the youth isn't the problem, but it's the infrastructure surrounding the youth that's the problem, that are failing whoever it is. It's funny how people who work for the system, NFL and not in the NFL, people that work for the system, vow that the system works, vow that it benefits everybody, when we've seen that it doesn't. And the NFL has had a significant amount of problems, PR-wise, with the way that their system works and how incredibly unbalanced it is. But that's just my thoughts on it, man. Tell me what y'all think. I'm done.